It's easy to forget what life was like before we had mobile devices. I mean, mobile devices in the form of smartphones that we have today. It's not that long ago that we didn't have powerful computers in our pockets, with big touchscreens connected to the internet. But these days, we're rarely without them. We have our entire lives in these phones. But think about this for a moment. Ask yourself this question. Start to go through in your mind all the things that you have on your phone. Your call history, your messages, photos of your kids, applications that you're logged into, your Facebook, your email. And it's worse than someone else just being able to read your email, because if they can receive email, they can start to do things like reset passwords on your other accounts. And even if you have multi-step verification on those accounts, and you need to receive an SMS in order to do something like reset it, they've got your phone, the thing that receives the SMS. They can start to communicate with your friends as though they were you. A vulnerable phone in the hands of a malicious person can be absolutely devastating. And right now, whilst you still have your phone, is the time to think about how to properly secure it. Let's go and take a look at that. This is my iPhone, and like many of you out there, I have a photo of my son as the wallpaper of my device, and that's just one of many very personal things I have on my phone. But as you can also see, my phone requires me to press home to unlock. I can't get into this phone until it is unlocked. Anyone who picks this device up and wants to get into it is going to need to go to this screen. Now they need a passcode, and until they enter the correct passcode, they're simply not going to be able to access this phone. Now this probably sounds very fundamental, very simple, and it is. Yet so many devices don't have this basic security setting. People don't turn on the requirement for a passcode because it gets in the way. This again comes back to this intersection of convenience versus security. And make no mistake, it is inconvenient to have to enter a PIN every single time you want to unlock the phone. Now, I'm not going to do that here because if I did, then, well, you'd see the PIN, and that would sort of defy the point of needing this secret in order to get into the phone. But that's also one of the issues we have with PINs. Shoulder surfing. People looking over someone else's shoulder, watching what happens on the phone. Now that might be sitting in an office, it might be standing on a train, but if you're having to enter your secret into a big touchscreen in close proximity to other people, then that is a privacy risk. Now I've got a modern iPhone, so there's a better way of doing this. Let me show you. I'm going to do a biometric logon. And what you'll see is that whilst I'm here on the home screen of my phone, the locked home screen, I'm just going to touch the home button with my thumb and I'm immediately logged on. Now that was in real time. It's very, very simple. In fact, it's even easier than that on a modern iPhone. I'm going to lock the phone again. And this time, all I'm going to do, whilst the phone is locked and the screen is blank, is just touch and hold my thumb on the home button. And that was it. I'm in. It is literally now as easy as picking up your phone to also unlock it using your unique fingerprint. Now this is great because it removes the usability barrier and it lets us do a few pretty neat things. So for one, a device like this continually locks itself. Every time I turn it off, it locks. Older phones that I've had, without modern versions of the operating system and modern biometrics, used to have a timeout. So I'd set it to say 3 minutes. If the phone is left unattended for 3 minutes, it will lock it automatically. Now that of course left a bit of a problem. I could have put my phone down, turned around, someone else picks it up and then gets in there. Now, because the friction of unlocking it is so low, it can lock immediately. Now, I don't want to focus too much on iOS or Apple's iPhone, because there are many other devices out there that can do biometric authentication. But even if you don't have biometrics, at least have the PIN. You are going to have a higher usability barrier and you're going to have that shoulder surfing risk, but it is so much better than having nothing at all, because that just leaves your phone as a free-for-all for anyone that can get their hands on it. So that's the physical security of our phone. What protects it when someone actually holds it in their hand? That's obviously really important. But let's go and take a look at another risk, and that's the software that you run on your device. I want to focus on this image for a moment, and this is a QR barcode scanner code reader from the Google Play App Store. Now, there's nothing remarkable about having a QR code reader in the App Store, but what's particularly interesting about this one is the permissions that it requires to operate. Now think about this for a moment. A QR code scanner needs to be able to use the camera on the device to read the QR code, and then it needs to be able to read the data within it. Yet when we look at this app, it's asking for access to things like your calendar, your contacts, your location. Why? Why does a QR code scanner need this? Look, there are some arguments that it could be valuable for certain purposes that would require access to your contacts or your calendar. But the bigger problem is that when someone goes to take this application from the App Store, and it is in the Google Play Store, there is one thing that they will be focusing on this screen. And it's the one thing that's sitting between them and actually starting to scan QR codes. And that's the accept button. People so frequently just jump to the path of least resistance. They're looking at what's the fastest, easiest way I can do what I want to do. And messages such as this, which do actually appear a bit risky, tend to be ignored. There are many malicious attacks mounted by applications that request excessive permissions. So you need to look at the apps that you're loading onto your device, and whether it's an Android or an iPhone or any other sort of device, if it's asking for particular permissions, you've got to ask yourself the question, am I actually happy to give that app that amount of access to my device? And if you're not, go and find another one. Now, while we're talking about app stores, let's go and talk about something else that's really important when you're loading apps onto one of your devices. This is a really fundamentally simple principle, and it's this. Use official app stores. If you've got an Android, get your apps from the Google Play Store. If you've got an iPhone, get your apps from the Apple App Store. They've both got more than 1 million apps each. There is no shortage of apps in the official App Store. And when you take apps from there, you know that they've been reviewed by Google and by Apple. And they're in that App Store because they've passed rigorous software quality controls. Now, that's not to say they're going to be perfect. We've still seen incidents of malicious software from the official app stores. But you can have a significantly higher degree of confidence that these apps are going to be legitimate when they come from an authoritative source. This is actually one of the things that makes modern-day smartphones and tablets so secure compared to the traditional mechanism of loading software onto, say, a PC. So you think about it. It's very easy to just download any software from the internet and run it on your PC. That's pretty much the way most software installation happens on Windows and on Macs today. But what the app stores have done for mobile devices is given us this great managed, controlled ecosystem where you can have a much higher degree of confidence in the integrity of these apps. Usually, when we see malicious apps running on a device, it's because they haven't been loaded from the official stores. There are a variety of reasons why people might do that, but the fact remains that when it hasn't gone through the mainstream channel, you're at a much higher degree of risk. So that's several things to look at with mobile devices. Making sure you have a PIN, trying to use biometrics, and being very careful about permissions and where you actually take your apps from. Let's now go and move on to the final module and talk about the Internet of Things.